We're gonna go into the best exercises that you can use to train speed strength, and we're gonna start right now. So what is speed strength? I think that this is just one of those abstract, crazy, brainy terms that a lot of people can't really put a definition to. They'll say moving heavy weights fast, which is, I think, probably the best definition. They will say things like, all right, let's move a load that's a little bit more absolute strength oriented as quickly as possible. But then there's this blended line between speed strength here and strength speed. And so what we've done over the last years, we've taken these two terms, like strength, speed, strength, and identified, all right, if we're around 0.95 meters per second on a movement all the way up to 2+ meters per second, that's gonna be speed strength. If we're under that movement velocity, that's gonna be strength speed. So now a lot of you might be saying, well, I don't have a velocity unit. I don't have a VMAX Pro. I don't have a Tendo unit. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go into percentages that you can use based off of our research that we've done here over the last year with all these exercises to help you improve that speed strength so that you can move. Like R.A. Roman has said, there's a big difference between moving heavy weight and moving heavy weight fast. And we believe that moving heavy weights fast leads to the best transfer in the competitive world. So typically these weights inside of a powerlifting program, let's think about Westside, right? That would be done on that dynamic day. For us, we believe that dynamic day is an okay term, but impulse day is much more effective because we're thinking about producing a large amount of force in a short period of time, just like in sports. So for us, what we're gonna go into when we're talking about impulse day with speed strength is, what are muscle snatches gonna be doing? What are power snatches, power cleans gonna be doing? What's that speed that we're looking at? And then that percentage. So the percentage you guys can use when you go into your specific training routine. We've got full cleans, we've got single leg squats, and we're even gonna provide percentages for that. And then bench press on impulse day, bench press, and then push presses, things that you can take now, jerks as well. These are gonna be all the lifts that we're gonna go over with specified percentages to help you guys improve your speed strength and dominate out in the competitive realm of sports performance. At Garage Strength, not only do we see exercises that are speed strength related on that impulse day, we also use a lot of speed strength training on our drop sets. So what are the speed strength qualities? Speed strength qualities are based around rapid rates of coordination. This also leads to a greater sense of perception, a greater sense of proprioception, because now we're gonna be a little bit more aware of our body control. When we're more aware with our body control, this also leads to greater impulse. When we have those rapid rates of coordination, we can recruit motor units faster, which helps us produce more force in a short period of time. And that's what's gonna transfer extremely well over to the sports performance world. And now we're gonna teach you precisely how to train them with Nick Singleton with some of our examples. So what exercises would we use? The first key exercise is gonna be a muscle snatch or a power snatch. Now, one of the things that we love to do when we're training athletes, okay, so non-weightlifters, so people who don't compete with the snatch, we will use a muscle snatch or a power snatch to gauge where they are on that day, to see how they're feeling, to see how they're moving. And it's also an easy movement to try and wake up the nervous system. So if they're feeling a little bit sluggish, we might do 3 doubles on power snatches, or we might do 3 doubles with a muscle snatch. And when we're dealing with field sport athletes, we have to think about this, right? We need to have speed strength, but we also need to have athletes that are extremely strong with their absolute strength. They also need to be very hypertrophic. They also need to be very fast. They have to be able to run very quickly. They have to be able to execute plyometrics at very high speeds, and also execute reflexive strength movements. And weightlifting movements tend to carry over very, very well to almost all of those different qualities of strength, okay? When we talk about absolute strength, when we talk about reflexive strength, when we talk about plyometrics, speed, weightlifting movements, technical coordination exercises transfer extraordinarily well. So when we're training a power snatch, we want that to move at over 2 meters per second. And again, a lot of you guys don't have a Tendo unit. What does that even mean as far as percentages are concerned? What we want to see is about 60 to 75% of your max power snatch. So if my max power snatch is 100 kilos, I'm probably gonna move about 75 kilos for doubles. So we might do 4 sets of 2, and that's gonna help train that speed strength quality. So how can we tell if we lack speed strength? Athletes that need more speed strength might be those individuals that are absurdly strong by the traditional sense. The athletes that have a massive max bench press or a massive back squat, but then at high speeds, they don't recruit really well. We have some individuals that might be able to back squat 550 pounds, but then if you ask them to power clean 225, they look terrible. Maybe they're doing box jumps and they sort of stutter step or they struggle. They're really rigid individuals. A lot of powerlifters tend to be that way. What I recommend then is saying, all right, they probably lack speed strength, and we've got to take those absolute numbers now and transfer those absolute strength numbers into more speed strength numbers. And this is also something that you can do with individuals who tend to have a dead nervous system. So if you're testing their 5-rep back squat and you notice a huge deficit or a huge discrepancy between their 5-rep back squat and their max back squat, and you see, wow, there's a very close connection between these two numbers, they probably have a little bit of a dead nervous system. So training more with those individuals in the speed strength realm after they develop that absolute strength will help improve their overall performance and rate of coordination. So the second key exercise, and this is something that we did with Nick Singleton when we're training his speed strength, is that we're gonna focus on a power clean or a full clean. So you might see Nicholas coming in and he's hitting a 110K clean or 120, 130K clean, and we're gonna analyze what that speed is. So Nick might hit a speed strength clean at about 1.7 meters per second, and that might be 130, 140 kilos. So that's really high. So when we're trying to train speed strength, the whole goal then with field-based athletes is to elevate that speed strength number. And if you have a tendo unit and you look at 1.7 meters per second or 1.8 meters per second, now you know what that speed is gonna be. And if you don't have a tendo unit or a VMAX Pro, what that percentage is gonna look like is about 80 to 83%. And that's gonna keep you likely above 1.6, 1.7 meters per second. And that's where the whole goal with speed strength athletes is to develop a baseline absolute strength number, and then that helps pull up their speed strength numbers. And so using Nicholas as an example here, we were able to get him at 140, so about 310, and he was able to move that around at 1.74 meters per second. And that was still around 85% of his max, 80 to 85% of his max. Then he hit 147, which is over 320 pounds, about 325. He hit that at 1.75 meters per second. So the higher we can push that number, the more weight, the more it becomes about heavyweight moving fast. And when you're dealing with something like the clean and you're moving 147 kilos at 1.75 meters per second, that's about 80 to 85% of your max, there's a large load of an eccentric portion there that helps you absorb that energy, okay? So you learn how to absorb that energy on the eccentric load that's very, very short, okay? When you absorb that quickly, that leads to that impulse improvement. If we have an impulse improvement from that speed strength, that's where we see those high rates of coordination transfer to the sports performance world. Now, you've heard us talk about single leg squats for absolute strength, but how can we use single leg squats when we're talking about speed strength? So one of the best ways to use single leg squats is to warm up over 2 to 3 sets with a lighter load to try and feel as twitchy as possible. And if we're measuring that speed, we want to see about 0.9 to 1.2 meters per second. Now, one of the things that we did with Nick when we were training his speed strength with the single leg squats, and you guys all know that we love single leg squats, and you also know that those single leg squat stands are available at GarageStrength.com. One of the things that we did with Nick then is it build up into about 160, 170K, okay? So we hit 170K and he's moving at about 0.7 meters per second. But then we dropped down to 150 kilos to see if he could hold about 0.9 to 1 meter per second. And what ends up happening is that during those sets, those drop sets, because he's potentiated, he was able to move that 150K at 0.95 meters per second. And that percentage that now you can use, especially after you pick up our single leg squat stand and balance pad, is gonna be about 80 to 85%. So think about starting around 75 to 80%, and if you're moving that rapidly and you feel a very good trunk control, you feel very rigid, you can slowly increase that weight as long as you focus on that rapid rate of coordination. Because again, if we're doing single leg squats, that dynamic trunk control, that unilateral position transfers absolutely phenomenally when we're training that speed strength aspect, 80 to 85% for 2 to 4 reps. But what about the upper body? So we're gonna cover 3 big lifts that you can use for your upper body when you're dealing with speed strength. So a movement that we love to use is behind the neck push press. It might look like this here. Boom, okay? Now, we can use jerk boxes or we can do it out of the rack. One of the benefits with speed strength is we don't necessarily have to have a rack, but we have to have a strong eccentric when we lower. So we can dip, drive here, and then rebound with that catch, okay? Now, what's that percentage gonna be? What we found is that the speed that we wanna see from a push press should be about 2 meters per second, okay? It can get a little bit lower if we go heavier, but I think for speed strength, it's best to be around 2 meters per second. It's gonna be very, very fast then, and this is gonna be around 75 to 80% of your max. We'll do doubles, we'll do triples, we'll do 7 sets, and that's gonna help train that elbow extension and a big drive even from the hips, which transfers to that strong upper body. Now, the next exercise is gonna be the PA barbell press. So we're here, boom, okay? Back down, boom, one more. Boom! If we're focusing on that speed strength, we wanna do this at about 50 to 70% of our max push press. So if my max push press is 400 pounds, which it is, I should be doing this for a double or a triple at around 200 pounds, and that's gonna help us move at around 2 meters per second. We need to feel that hip drive, we need to have dynamic trunk control, and transfer that energy fast into our hands. Now, in comes the bench press. Benching around 0.95 meters per second or all the way up to 1.2 meters per second is where we're gonna see that speed strength realm. Now, there's an interesting point here, and this is actually something that we did with Nick inside of his speed strength workout with his upper body. What we followed was a buildup, okay? So we wanted to see, all right, if he can work up to around 375, 405, and he moves that around 0.4 meters per second, then as we drop down to around 275, we're gonna see if that 275 can be where his speed strength work gets done. And if he can hit that around 0.9 to 1 meters per second without the bounce pad, then we're gonna see some serious speed strength recruitment that will factor over to greater speed with his pressing. Now, one of the key factors behind speed strength training is that we're trying to basically hack or trick or train the nervous system as well as we possibly can. A little trick that we love to use is using a garage strength balance pad available at garagestrength.com. You can pick this up with your single leg squat stand as well. And we can put this underneath our shirt. Okay, so if we put this underneath our shirt and we can load up on the bench press then, having problems put this on, we can load up on the bench press, let's say 405, right? And if we lower a little bit more aggressively, that faster eccentric will lead to a big drive. We're gonna store some energy in the pad, but we're also tricking our nervous system to have a little bit higher motor unit recruitment. When we take that weight off here, we're gonna feel that and our nervous system's gonna start to recruit really rapidly. Then as we're locking out, now our triceps are gonna be a little bit stronger. We're also gonna have a unique stretch shortening cycle from our pecs as we bring that bar down here, and that's gonna keep leading to that long stretch, which will trigger our muscle spindles to recruit more high threshold motor units. So that's gonna help us move 405 or 315, depending upon our absolute strength, at around 2 meters per second. And I just realized that I'm doing this entire thing looking like a giant SpongeBob, is that we can train that speed strength either with a balance pad at heavier load, or we can train it without the balance pad at lighter load. The lighter load without the balance pad will be about 1 meter per second or around 65 to 73% of your max. Or if you use that balance pad, now you can be up around 80 to 85% of your max and still move that at around 2 meters per second. And that's exactly how we peaked Olympian Sam Mattis when we were heading into the Diamond League final. We were doing bounce benches with 405 to 440 pounds, focusing on that speed strength with that higher level of intensity to really wake up his nervous system so that he could drop a big bomb. Speed strength carries over the best. It carries absolute strength into the field. And that's even what we've done inside of our app, where we take technical coordination movements and help you turn that into speed strength. In our sweet app, Peak Strength, we have over 35 different sports, and you can even sign up today and get that first week free. So when you're training speed strength and you don't have access to a tendo unit or a velocity-based tool, what you can do is just use all of the percentages that we provided for you today. And remember, the key is to move heavy weight, but to move heavy weight fast. If you want more content about speed strength and about strength training in general, make sure you check out our brand new YouTube channel, Peak Strength. Because remember, freaks, if you guys want to become champions, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.